So I said this earlier today, and this is very, very rare, but it does happen. You have friends who are GMs in the league. I do. There are the rare, brilliant college coaches. Saban could coach at any level. Lincoln Riley. That you have a great college coach, and the rule is generally you go from Clay Helton to, your college coach to an NFL coach, get better coaching. And then there's Saban with DBs and Lincoln Riley with quarterbacks. It looks like to me the further Baker gets away from right now, America's college coaching offensive genius, Lincoln Riley, he's gone from 64 to 56. His mechanics aren't as good. Doug, no reasonable person could watch Baker last year and not say, man, he is accurate. He's no longer accurate.
Yeah, well, there's a bunch of things to unpack here. Let's start with, please tell me that you bet on the San Francisco 49ers last night. This was the easiest bet that Vegas has maybe ever had. Niners had last week off. They haven't played anybody. Healthiest they've ever been. Nick Bosa, just now, he got the first 3 games to kind of get his motor going. Yeah. And now he looks like the guy who should have been the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft. Yeah. And you got Jimmy Garoppolo back, kind of getting his confidence. But more than anything, like the story of this week, the story of week 5 is with all the talk of quarterbacks and throwing the ball around, the best defense is to not play defense, is to run the football and win time of possession. Yeah. Green Bay, 37 minutes. Colts, 37 minutes. And, of course, the bludgeoning last night in Santa Clara, 37 minutes of offense.
It was.
Run the football. Run the football. And, look, you have to have a good offensive line, but it's, by the way, how the Browns beat the Ravens. Now, they were unable to run the ball, but you're right in terms of coaching. But the first thing is you got a team coming off a rivalry game against the Ravens where they went all in and have to travel across the country against the Niners, who are fresh, rested, trying to prove themselves, and they had an extra week and an extra day to prepare. Of course, this was a mismatch. Now, in terms of coaching, this is what you get. You get a guy who never called plays until mid-year last year against Kyle Shanahan, who's been bred for this, right?
Like 12 years of brilliance in the coaching.
It's not just that, but he was essentially a coach as a wide receiver when he was at Texas, playing football there. This is what kind of he was born to do. And think of the wellspring of football brilliance that was in D.C. when he was there, right? Like, go back and look at that group, the McVays, they're all there. They're all going and winning elsewhere with kind of a similar system. So, yes, I thought Kyle Shanahan showed himself to be an incredible play caller. I also thought their defense was excellent. And I agree with you. I think that the thing about Baker Mayfield is we raved about his intangibles, but you do have to have tangibles. Like, you have to, everybody, well, you have to have the leadership. He has that. Okay. You have to have the moxie. He has that. But there is a reason that he was a walk-on twice, right? There was a reason that Oklahoma would get the first time they got to the college football playoff, and he forced the ball a bunch because he isn't one of these 6'4", 6'5", stand back in the back of the pocket and throw it. He can't see over his offensive lineman. He's not as athletic enough to get his feet set. He's not Russell Wilson. People are like, well, he's a poor man's Russell Wilson. No. He's a broke man's Russell Wilson. But I also think he's hurt by the fact that they don't have a great coaching staff. They're not running the football consistently, and they have the egos to feed the ball to wide receivers, and the whole thing is a smoldering mess right now, and they got exposed last night.
Okay, so I said it. I think we would both agree on this. Any business, basketball teams you played on, your Oklahoma State teams, you have to have sort of a foundation. What are we? Yeah. We always know what New England is, right? Like, there's a lot of talent, but that's why it's very dangerous sometimes bringing in a lot of free agents because they have demands. You can't meet them. New England does that sparingly. To me, the Browns' foundational 4 are Nick Chubb, Baker, Miles, Jarvis. I said this morning, they have an offensive line which is now a liability against elite pass rushers. We saw it last year with the Chargers. We saw it last night. I would consider moving OBJ. November 10, Kareem Hunt comes in. Next year, Njoku is back. You got to solve that O-line, Doug. OBJ, they're trying to do...
What are you going to get for Odell Beckham Jr.?
An offensive lineman that's a starter?
Maybe. Maybe, but again, you have to unload that contract. Somebody has to be willing to take it. Look, let me just say this. I know the jersey exchange thing happens. Okay, I get the jersey swap thing. It started in soccer. Yeah. And apparently Adrian Peterson went up to Tom Brady, and Tom Brady's like, yeah, I'll send it to you, whatever. But the idea that Odell Beckham Jr. would play that poorly, right? A couple drops, 2 catches, fumble in the fourth quarter in the punt return, and then stand out and take pictures of the dude changing jerseys when you get beat 31-3. Like, the ball's on that guy. What are you doing? You get beat 31-3 on national TV. You run your butt in the locker room. You change, you shower, you answer questions, you get on the plane, you fly home.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not super old school back when we were in high school. No music on the bus. Nobody talks on the bus when you get beat.
Yeah.
But there's a certain responsibility if you want to be a leader, if you're about winning. You don't just stand out there all smile. You just got embarrassed on national TV. Like, what are you doing? I would only caution you on the Jarvis Landry thing. And I know, Joy, you can speak to this. Like, look, Miami couldn't wait to get rid of him. I don't think he's the problem that OBJ is, but he's not necessarily the solution that you think he is. Like, when Miami tried to change their culture 2 years ago, they let Ndamukong Suh go, and they wanted to get rid of Jarvis Landry. So the idea that he's the solution, I'm not buying. They have offensive line issues. They don't have a culture in place. They don't have a head coach that can discipline them, and they don't know who they are or what they are. The good news is the Browns have an incredibly soft back end of their schedule, and Pittsburgh's running out a rookie third-string quarterback. They play the Dolphins. The Bengals are one of the worst teams in the history of football, along with the Bengals. There's some wins out there, but they got to fix it and fix it fast.
Doug. All right, so one of my theories in the world is don't try to be right, get it right. It's okay to acknowledge, wow, I made a mistake on that. That's why we do Colin right, Colin wrong. I have been, first of all, I was a doubter on Dak for a long time. Then he got Amari Cooper. I'm like, okay, 7-1, he looks pretty good. And even this year, I'm like, I'd pay him. But you watch him next to Aaron Rodgers, and you're like, wow, the gap. And by the way, Dak's got the better O-line. Dak's got the more established running game, and that's like a gap. And then I looked at this, Doug. Of the last 12 losses for Dallas, this is what's scary. These aren't like true analytics, but 11 of the 12 are the same game. The offense is inept, scoring 0 points, 14, 9, 6, 8, 12. Like, there's ways to lose. Like, when Kansas City lost to the Rams last year, you're like, that's a fireworks show. It happened. You're on the road. It was going to be in Mexico, then in L.A. Or the Rams lost to Seattle. You're like, that's a pretty good team. Buffalo loses to New England. Did you pause at all on Dak after that game?
I was never leading the charge on Dak like you were. I wasn't just handing out money the way you were.
I'm Santa Claus.
He's Draymond Green to this team, right? He's Draymond Green. When in his role, he's a superstar role player. But if his role is expanded to carry the team when Tyron Smith is out, right? Or they're not able to run the football and you got to go win us a game, that's not who he is. It's not who he is. That's not how the thing is designed. They're designed to run the football, get an extra guy in the box. They had to bring back Jason Witten. They had to trade for Amari Cooper. They had to make all of these moves to make it right for him. Now, the perfect example is Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, people are, and I saw last week you pointed out Aaron Rodgers' recent record. You did kind of quietly forget about the fact that the first decade of him starting in the league, he's winning 10, 11 games every year with nominal surrounding talent, right? I mean, Aaron Rodgers can just win you a game on his own, and Dak Prescott can't. And it's a lot like we'll see Draymond this year with the Golden State Warriors, right? If he's your fifth best offensive player,
you can win titles.
Absolutely. He can guard any position. He does all the little things. He'll get into a verbal tussle and a physical tussle with guys trying to rattle the other team's best player. But if you give him the ball and say, hey, dude, we need you to win us a game, like, no. That's not what Draymond does. Same thing with Dak Prescott. If you give him time, like you did think about who they played the first 3 weeks. Yeah. Right? The Giants are embarrassingly bad on defense.
Yeah, bad.
Right? And that's when they were starting Eli and had no offense. Yeah. The Washington Redskins are so good, they fired their head coach. They're 31st in defense, and they play Miami Dolphins. Everybody looks good against the Dolphins.
That's fair.
Right? So now the reality has struck, and I think we realize he's a good player. And if you're the Dallas Cowboys, you've always had this ability in negotiation to say, look, if you don't like our deal, it's fine. We'll just franchise tag you next year, and you'll make in the mid-20s guaranteed. But
that's not a terrible move right now, Doug.
No, it's a very reasonable move.
In Dallas, no state tax, $27 million. It's a lot of money.
No, and time is very, very much on their side. And I think Dak is exactly who I thought he was. I don't think he's a bad quarterback. I don't think he's a great quarterback. I think he's a middle of the road, and he's good enough to win with if you put stars around him. The other story of that team thing was the defense got dominated at the point of attack, and we shouldn't put all of the blame on Dak.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for watching. Subscribe here to get the latest from the show. Also, be sure to check out more of the best clips from The Herd or go watch a few segments from other shows on FS1.